Progressives continue their effort to try to keep certain lawyers who worked at big law firms off of the federal bench. These are the firms where many of the top law students go after law school, and while there, ended up representing big, bad corporations as lawyers. More than 20 progressive groups are pushing Senate Judiciary Committee members to reject one of President Biden's judicial nominees, Jennifer Reardon, because of her past work at the prestigious Gibson, Dunn and Crutcher law firm. President Biden nominated Reardon to serve on the federal district court for the Southern District of New York after former President Trump previously nominated Reardon to the same position in May of 2020. And that certainly can't help her, because progressives don't want a political moderate or someone who's okay for Trump, even if she's given far more to Democrats than Republicans over the years. In the letter, the group specifically cite Reardon's work on, quote, cases defending housing discrimination, seeking to overturn worker protections, and challenging improved access to transportation for wheelchair users, as reasons that President Biden should withdraw Reardon's nomination. But remember, she's a lawyer, and her job is to represent clients, like criminal defense attorneys who represent killers, rapists, and robbers. But they're okay. These groups take issue with the firm's work representing corporations. They represent Uber, Walmart, and in particular with the firm's representation of Chevron in a lawsuit against a former environmental lawyer who was sentenced to 6 months in prison last year for contempt of court. In January, Michigan Democratic Congresswoman and member of the Squad, Rashida Tlaib, blasted Biden's decision to nominate Reardon, claiming her presence on the court will accelerate a, quote, conservative takeover of the judicial branch. But that's ridiculous. According to the Vetting Room, which is a legal blog that analyzes judicial nominations, while she has donated to moderate Republicans like Mitt Romney and Chris Christie in the past, Reardon has mainly backed Democratic candidates, including giving nearly $12,000 to female Democratic senators and Senate candidates during the 2016 campaign cycle. So now Reardon is sort of a woman without a country because she sits somewhere in the middle, and the activists on both sides yell much louder than the middle. And being in the middle means she's not good enough for the progressives, and even though Donald Trump nominated her previously, because she's now a Biden nominee, it's unlikely many conservatives in the Senate will fight for her nomination either. Meanwhile, activist groups on the far left want Reardon's nomination tossed because she had the gall to actually have a prestigious career practicing law before she was nominated to the federal bench. Joining me to tell me why I am wrong is Jason Rylander, a senior attorney for the Climate Law Institute at the Center for Biological Diversity, one of the 21 groups that signed that letter to members of the Judiciary Committee. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Appreciate it. All right, the field is yours. What am I getting wrong here?
Well, thank you for having me. The fact is that who is on the judiciary really does matter, and that's why Republicans care so much about judicial nominations. And we have begun to see the effects of President Trump's nominees on a variety of issues, on cases related to the environment, on workers' rights, on human rights, and health and safety protections. So the question is, why is President Trump nominating to the federal bench a Trump nominee who has a troubling record of representing corporations against some of those very issues that are central to his agenda? President Biden needs to do more to reverse the conservative takeover of the courts and not help it along with another Trump nominee.
So the problem is that if anyone who was considered by Trump or was deemed to pass the test under the Trump administration, you will immediately then oppose that person just because the person was deemed to be qualified under President Trump.
Not at all. But the fact of the matter is we've taken a close look at her record and at the record of Gibson Dunn, and there are troubling questions that, in our mind, raise real issues about whether this person deserves a lifetime position on the federal judiciary. She was a Chevron lawyer. She did defend against housing discrimination. She did try to overturn public health protections and challenged cases where she was could have been advocating for people with disabilities and took the other side.
But she's a lawyer. I mean, what about the example that I used before about a criminal defense lawyer who represents a murderer, right? The person's convicted. It's clear the person did it. Should that person then be disqualified, that lawyer, because that lawyer's representing murderers?
No, not necessarily, but the Judiciary Committee just a couple of weeks ago spent a good deal of time grilling a public defender about not only the cases that she personally worked on, but also the cases that her office worked on. And frankly, corporate law firms represent a lot of different types of clients, and the work that they do should not be off limits for questioning. We think fundamentally that the cases that Jennifer Reardon has worked on and the cases that Gibson Dunn has worked on and the way that they have prosecuted those cases warrants significant questioning from the Senate Judiciary Committee before they reward her with a lifetime position as a federal judge.
Well, look, I think questions are fair game, right? And just so people understand, Gibson Dunn is one of the nation's great law firms, very prestigious, top law students go there, et cetera. It sounds like what you're saying is that no one who was a partner at Gibson Dunn, and I'm certain that there are other law firms where you would also say the same thing based on who their clients were, should ever be considered to be a federal judge.
Well, we're not making any kind of categorical claim. Again, this is about her record and the record that she had, the cases that she has boasted about to the Judiciary Committee. I mean, the fact of the matter is Gibson Dunn represents fossil fuel industries, including Chevron. Chevron spilled 16 billion gallons of oil in Ecuador, harming the Ecuadorian people, indigenous farmers, and they have not been held accountable fully for the effects of that, thanks to the work that people like Reardon and Gibson Dunn have done over the years. And they have traditionally, and Reardon's record specifically, has been one of representing corporations against the public interest. A spot on the judiciary should, and Biden has said he wants to diversify the judiciary. There are plenty of corporate lawyers already on the bench. And if he wants a judiciary that looks like America and represents all of the different types of interests, from public defenders to public interest lawyers to, yes, occasionally corporate lawyers as well, which are very well represented, he should be looking elsewhere for his nominees for the Southern District of New York.
Yeah, the reason I gave you the example about the criminal lawyer is that, you're right, that when a public defender who's represented horrible people ends up as suggested as a judge, that person does get questions about it. And I would say the same thing that I'm saying to you, to someone who says, well, if someone was ever a public defender and they defended bad guys, they should never be a judge. I'd be saying the same thing. I'd be saying that's crazy. The idea that a lawyer whose job it is to represent clients should be excluded for consideration from the federal bench based on a client that the person had. Now, you want to tell me that the person was a lobbyist, they were advocating for, or that it was their personal view that they donated X amount of dollars to this. But that's different. There shows, in my view, and I'm going to give you the final word on this, it shows, in my view, a level of disrespect for lawyers who do what they do. They represent clients, and you don't like the fact that they represent corporations, but you're okay with them representing bad guys. Final word.
Well, as lawyers, we all have choices about who we represent, how we represent them, and the like. And the fact of the matter is, if in the middle of a climate emergency, you want to represent the fossil fuel industry or corporations and big banks, big tobacco, you're welcome to do that, and you are very well compensated. She made $1.4 million last year and $2.8 million the year before that. But none of that means that you are necessarily suitable for a position of the public trust, fairly ruling on legal questions as a member of the judiciary for life. So we want the Judiciary Committee to take a closer look at this nomination, and we hope that they will reject this nomination.
Yeah, and I worry about political moderates in this country ever making it on the bench because of activists on both sides. But Jason Rylander, I promised you'd get the final word, and I only sort of gave it to you. So thank you very much for coming on the show. I appreciate it. Important discussion.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Thank you for watching. Click the red subscribe button below so you can get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.